What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Lucas and Tyler are back with you on this fine Friday. Tyler, how are we doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing good. I am excited for the weekend as always.
As always.
And you know what? I'm in the middle of a move right now.
Yeah.
And it is going smoothly so far, and I know I just jinxed the rest of the move, so prayers and thoughts would be appreciated. But no, but it's a pretty exciting time to be alive and to be in the world right now. So yeah, I'm doing great.
You're in the middle of a move. Cameron just moved down to Florida. I guess I'm next, except I'm dealing with the Rona. So that is why you and I are not together right now. So we all have our own things going on in life right now. Cameron is not able to join us tonight, taking another personal day, which we totally respect. And again, he'll take as much time as he needs. But thankfully, we had him back for Wednesday's episode. So it was great to have him back on. One of these days, it always seems like whenever one of us can't make it, the other, like somebody else can't. But like you're the constant, Tyler. I just need to like applaud you and like thank you for being the constant on this podcast, even though you're not like the normal host, but you're like the one steady rock of this podcast. So really, you're probably the face of this podcast, if we're being honest.
I mean, my back is getting kind of sore, so I mean, I'm glad that it's being noticed. But no, I'm kidding. I'm glad that I'm the steady presence on this podcast, and I know that some people may not appreciate the constant and the constant advice that I give, but you know what? I'm here for the fellas. I'm here for y'all, and at the end of the day, that's what matters.
We got a great episode today. 10 league winners for the 2022 fantasy football season. Catch is, though, we're doing this in a super fun style. We're doing this like Bill Simmons style, if I will. I feel like Bill Simmons always does podcasts like this, where it's like, let's draft the top 20, top 10 guys in the NBA. And I'm like, okay, so we're just going to draft the top 10 league winners in our eyes. So Tyler and I each have a list of league winners down, and we're just going to bounce back and forth. And we're going to give you some of our favorite picks to be league winners in fantasy football this year. We tried to vary it up a little bit. I at least tried to vary it up a little bit from our Fellas Flag Plants episode. So if you haven't seen, it's like our version of My Guys, right? So if you haven't seen our Flag Plants episode, go check that out. You laugh as if half of your picks included your flag plants.
Yeah, and now I'm kind of scrambling a little bit because
scramble my son.
Oh no.
Thankfully, I do think our names will be mixed up enough where because I try to avoid it so much where I think a lot of your names probably won't overlap with mine. If you're struggling, it doesn't matter. I should have given that preface before we started this episode, and we even talked for an hour before the episode, and we still didn't figure it out. That's okay. We're going to get into 10 league winners. But first, we have quite a bit of news and notes from around the league to cover for y'all. Starting with the multi-million-dollar man himself, Russell Wilson. The Broncos and Wilson agreed on a 5-year, $245 million extension with 165 of that guaranteed. Locks Russell Wilson up in Denver for the next 7 years. That's wild. Good for him. It's a price you're paying for quarterbacks nowadays. Good for Russ. We can move on. This team is going to be great for the next foreseeable future. There's your hashtag analysis on the Denver Broncos. Brian Robinson placed on the reserve NFI list due to his gunshot wounds sustained earlier this week. Apparently a week 5 return is likely in the works for him. That's far earlier than I expected. I have Brian Robinson statted out for 5 games now this season. That whole thing is just like toying with me. So I don't know, how does this impact your rankings? Because all of a sudden, like Antonio Gibson looks like a much more viable option for me. But if Brian Robinson is going to be back week 5, like that makes it more annoying than it was Brian Robinson is taking over for Antonio Gibson. So how does this impact Antonio Gibson's outlook for you?
Um, Maybe the best way to explain is that I'm just avoiding this Washington backfield at all
Sure.
costs because you know that while Robinson is out, you know that Gibson and McKissick aren't necessarily going to split carries, but you know how that rushing game will work, right? Gibson is a ground and pound. McKissick is then on the passing downs and is a receiving back. When Robinson comes back, that's when things get even more tricky, right? Because here's the other point about just the McKissick and Gibson duo. Everything that we've seen so far in preseason is that they don't trust Gibson, and I know that Robinson's out, but that doesn't mean that they trust Gibson again. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it may not be as simple as just a rushing back and a receiving back. But then you add in Robinson, and that's when it gets even more complicated. So yeah, the best way to explain or to answer your question, just avoid it. Like, I know that there's some opportunity for Antonio Gibson right out the gate. I'm not taking that risk because at some point Robinson is going to come back, and I want to be able to flip Gibson, and I feel like I won't be able to, in a timely manner where I can get a good value for Gibson.
Antonio Gibson's ADP on Underdog is running back 30 right now. Promo fellas, if you want to go play against us on there. I will say I am far more willing to take Antonio Gibson at that ADP than I was last week. It makes it more interesting, at least. Yeah, I'm avoiding this backfield at this point, unless if I get a deal like that on Gibson. If I get Gibson outside of the top 25, I will absolutely take the shot on him then, just because of the upside of what we've seen from him on limited carries before and the touchdown upside. And it's such a headache that I just don't want to play the game. I just don't want to play the Washington Commanders backfield game. So, no, I am in agreement with you there. Matt LaFleur suggests the Packers will use a wide receiver by committee approach this year. I find that hard to believe when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. I think he'll just kind of start targeting whoever he wants whenever he wants because he's Aaron Rodgers and he'll have a favorite target on this team. This doesn't really mean much for me.
No, and LaFleur clarified it was more like, it'll be a different guy stepping up in different games and stuff. That fits a Rodgers tendency more, than a wide receiver by committee. And again, another, position group that I'm avoiding altogether. And everyone tries to give me or to say the sneaky Alan Lazard, has top 30 upside this year. Sure. But when your coach comes out and says, yeah, different guys are going to be stepping up in different games and stuff, and then you have a quarterback like Rodgers who can target you one game and then you can fade off because you find someone else that he likes to target more. I'm not going to deal with the headache of the Packers wide receivers.
I'm going to make sure I pick one of my league winners now just because of your thoughts on that. Moving on. Moving on. I don't want to spoil the episode. David Montgomery's fit in the Bears offense is met with skepticism, according to reports. That's news to me. I feel like this isn't something we can just glaze over. I think that does mean we could see more Khalil Herbert. I feel like this means we could see, like, are the Bears willing to move on from Monty? Like, I don't want to dig too deep into it. Like, I'm fine with Monty at his ADP of running back 17 right now, but at the same time, I think this is something to take into consideration if you're going to draft David Montgomery this year. I know he was a flag plant for Cameron. I don't know how. I'd be interested to hear what this means for him, but I mean, for me, Monty was never a guy. He's going at the range where I look at the wide receivers before I take Monty, even though I really do like Monty this year. That being said, I think is important to acknowledge. You got to take it into account when you draft Monty this year. Really, anybody, like, once the running back dead zone hits, there's not really anybody I'm super comfortable with taking until about Kareem Hunt, honestly. Like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm not in love with any of those running backs. Brees Hall, maybe, but like, still, I'm not. He has a gauntlet the first 7 weeks of the season, which turns me off a little bit on the idea of drafting him as my running back too. But that being said, Monty's in like that perfect range of like, ooh, I need a running back, but it's also in the dead zone, so I don't really want to draft him. I don't know what you thought when you heard this news, but that was my first thought. Was like a little bit of the shine off of Monty now.
I think, yes, the shine is definitely kind of fading now on David Montgomery. But to a certain extent, like, Montgomery has like the touchdown upside or has the only touchdown upside on the Bears this year, if that makes sense. I don't expect them to be passing many touchdowns. I don't really expect them to be scoring a whole lot in general. So I can understand the RB17, ADP right now. But at the same time, like, that if you're drafting Montgomery, you're drafting touchdown upside. You're not drafting him to be more of a bell cow running back. That's how I've always seen Montgomery. But it is a little off-putting a little bit, because then you look at Khalil Herbert, who's going 40s and 50s in drafts in the in the running backs. I'm not ready to say that Herbert's the better value, but I feel like if you're taking Montgomery, you should you do the wise thing and take Herbert as well, if just in case there is a changing of the guard in Chicago, because Monty is such a misfit in the offense.
Yeah, I think you have to be, all of a sudden Khalil Herbert becomes, I don't know if he has standalone value yet, but he's definitely somebody, if I'm taking Monty, I'm looking at Khalil Herbert with one of my later picks. Depending on how deep your league is, it might be the last pick in your draft, it might be the fourth to last pick, whatever. However deep your league is, I'm looking at Khalil Herbert later in drafts now. Last piece of news before we get to just a ton of roster changes here. Ken Walker feels way better, according to Pete Carroll. Honestly, this doesn't mean much to me, because Pete Carroll also said that Drew Lock would be the first quarterback taken in this year's draft, and Geno Smith is the projected starter, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't put much weight into this. I believe it. I don't think it really changes anything for Ken Walker for me, honestly. I have him and Rashad Penny as kind of this, like, again, headache of a backfield I don't truly want to touch, but I would much rather have Rashad Penny after we saw what he could do the last 5 weeks of last season.
The thing with Ken Walker, it doesn't seem like they're rushing him back at all. And that's the approach that you should have, or the mindset that you should have when you're drafting a Seattle running back. Are they rushing Ken Walker back? It doesn't seem like it at all. Rashad Penny is the guy to take in the Seattle backfield. There's intrigue in Walker. Again, just being a rookie in the state of the Seahawks at the moment. But we can't go around expecting Ken Walker to be a, generational talent's not the right phrase.
I mean, high upside running
There's
back.
value, but don't expect him.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, like, he will be filling a backup role for this year. Unless Rashad Penny goes down with an injury, then Kenneth Walker steps right in. But again, like you said, like, this backfield is another headache, and really not wanting to take a piece of it. But if I find myself in a spot where I'm choosing between the two, I'm taking Rashad Penny now, majority, if not like all the time.
Yeah, I'm taking Rashad Penny 10 times out of 10 over Ken Walker. The fact Ken Walker has been going ahead of Rashad Penny on sleeper mock drafts is absurd to me. I would much rather have Rashad Penny than Ken Walker. Thing with Rashad Penny, though, like, he does have an injury history, right? So you could run into that where Ken Walker automatically, becomes really valuable. I don't draft a player like banking on him to get injured, though, right? Like I'm not drafting Khalil Herbert banking on David Montgomery to miss more time this year, right? Like, that's not how I draft players. So yeah, I don't put much weight into that report coming right from Pete Carroll. All right, time to go through a bunch of roster changes here, based on teams making cuts and slimming down to the 53-man rosters. Sony Michel to the Chargers. Got waived by the Dolphins. Now was picked up by the Chargers. That's intriguing. Tyler Johnson to the Texans, waived by the Buccaneers. Trey Sermon to the Eagles. That's a fascinating one, if you ask me, because now I don't even want to I know we haven't seen much from Trey Sermon, but like, isn't that the most Philadelphia thing to do? Just when you think they have like the three-headed monster that you don't even want to think about, like Miles Sanders, we're already avoiding. Excuse me. I'm drafting Ken Walker based on pure upside and athleticism. Boston Scott is like, I don't think he's much of a goal line threat. Oh, he is a goal line threat, but like, I don't think they want to use him around the goal line. And now you add Trey Sermon. It's just like, what do I make of this running back group? It's wild. It's wild to me. I don't want to sit here and analyze it that much, but all I'm saying is that we've been out on Miles Sanders for a reason, and this is just yet another reason to avoid Miles Sanders. Jalen Reagor traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Amir Smith-Marset cut by the Vikings and then picked up by the Bears. OJ Howard cut by the makes no sense. OJ Howard cut by the Bills, could be the Texans' new starting tight end. And speaking of the Texans, Marlon Mack cut by the Texans and assigned to the practice squad. I think that's about it. Did I miss anything?
Nailed it.
Let's move on to league winners, the part that everybody's been waiting for. 10 league winners for the 2022 NFL season, 2022 fantasy football season. So here's how it's going to work. Instead of just listing off 10 league winners, Tyler, we're going to do this draft style. I mentioned it at the top. We're going to do it Bill Simmons draft style. I feel like my Bill Simmons impression is like very weak and I should just cut it out. Anyways, we're going to bounce back and forth. We're going to draft
Jackson.
Jackson, cut the Bill Simmons part. We're going to bounce back and forth. 10 league winners. So you're going to get 5 league winners from both Tyler and I. We're going to bounce back and forth. We're going to do this draft style. We're not going to do a snake draft, though, because it really doesn't add any advantage. It's just 2 of us picking twice in a row. So we're just going to bounce back and forth. Tyler, because I am such a gracious host and probably your best friend in the entire planet, I am going to give you the first pick in our 10 league winners draft. But yeah, we're going to go back and forth till the end of the episode here. And I don't think we have much more to say. We're okay. Here's what I'm going to say about league winners. We're not going to try and make them stupid obvious. We're not going to sit here and tell you that Justin Jefferson is a league winner because, well, duh, he's going in the first round. Okay. We're going to shoot for some guys who have some more trivial takes on. We're going to shoot for some guys like Cooper Kupp was going in the 5th round last year. There are guys going in the 5th round who we think could be league winners. Debo Samuel was in the 8th round last year, right? Like, these are the guys we're going to try and hone in on. We're not going to give you these stupid, obvious names just like, because you already know that. You already know they're going to help you win your league. So that all being said, all the disclaimers out there, Tyler, you can take it away with your first pick here out of our 10 league winners.
My first guy, excuse me, as I clear my throat, because I know some people will be enraged by who I'm going to talk about. There is a wide receiver out there that is just an absolute bully, who is an absolute freak of nature. And if that did not give it away, then you're living under a rock, because this is quite obvious. This is DK Metcalf, okay?
Oh.
And DK Metcalf, here's the first point that needs to be said. The argument against DK Metcalf this year is the quarterback situation sucks. Yeah, it does. But guess who was a top 10 wide receiver with a crappy quarterback last year? DK Metcalf. He was the wide receiver 7 the 3 weeks that Geno Smith played. He was a wide receiver 7. And he's currently going outside the top 15. And I think it's closer to like 18, 19, 20.
He's the wide receiver 18.
DK Metcalf. Yeah, wide receiver 18. Like, DK Metcalf is getting into this, it doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball because everyone will throw DK Metcalf the ball. So if, that doesn't sell you on it, he was 5th in fantasy points per target in man coverage. Zone coverage was a little bit different, but teams wanted to play man because they knew that DK Metcalf against a zone defense just picks you apart. He was 5th. He was getting almost 2.5 points per target. 2.5 points per target, okay? You know the upside that he has with touchdowns because he's just a freak athlete. He's a big body. I mean, he was 5th in touchdowns last year. 5th in touchdowns with a Geno Smith at quarterback for 3 weeks, with a bum Russell Wilson because he rushed himself back. Let's just admit it. He rushed himself back. He was 25th in receiving yards and receptions still. He was 3rd in deep targets. Does that matter to anyone? Like, he was 11th in red zone targets. Hello? Like, some of these stats that DK Metcalf has, regardless of his quarterback situation I shouldn't say regardless, with his quarterback status last year, DK Metcalf, wide receiver 18, falling into the 4th round, sometimes even the 5th round in drafts. League winner, DK Metcalf.
So he's going right around the same range as like a Mike Williams in drafts. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm taking Mike Williams 10 times out of 10 over DK Metcalf, but when you talk about touchdown upside, that's the thing that makes DK Metcalf great for fantasy football. It's not that he's not voluming his way like a Cooper Kupp, like a Justin Jefferson, like a Devontae Adams, right? Like, DK Metcalf is going to score you touchdowns on touchdowns on touchdowns. And I don't think that changes. Like, will that number come down? Yes. But like, are we looking at a guy who should be drafted outside of the top 15? Maybe. You don't. I disagree. I have DK Metcalf outside of my top 25 wide receivers, but like, to say the touchdown upside isn't there, I think is silly. I mean, and could he be a league winner this year? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities based on where his ADP is. So you went with DK Metcalf for your first league winner. I'll stick with someone else who's going pretty high on the draft board. I shouldn't say pretty high, but like, again, like someone who isn't going to be shocking. This is like hands down my number 1 league winner. And if you tell me he's not a league winner, then I'll explain why I think he is. DeAndre Swift is my first league winner this year. People like, he's going as a running back 8 right now, which isn't like crazy absurd. Like, I think that's pretty fair for DeAndre Swift. But when we look at last season, you want to know who's going in that range, finished as number 1 overall running back in fantasy football and just absolutely dominated for people to make it to fantasy championships and win fantasy championships. Oh, it was Jonathan Taylor. I guarantee you would call Jonathan Taylor a league winner last year. So that's what I think the upside is for DeAndre Swift. The fact you can get him in the early 2nd round, crazy, if you ask me. There have been multiple times in 10, 12-man leagues, if I have pick 10, 11, or 12, I've been able to stack up on both Alvin Kamara and DeAndre Swift. Okay, like that has more to do with like Swift's ADP and the value you can get him at. But like, the point is, I think Swift could easily outperform that early 2nd round ADP. I think he has running back 1 upside in him. Overall running back 1 upside in him, I should say. So running back 2, everyone wants to complain about the competition with Jamal Charles. We split carries with, or Jamal Williams. Wow, that's a throwback, Jamal Charles. Running back 2, weeks 1 through 7 with Jamal Williams on the field. He was splitting carries with Jamal Williams. Like, it was, you go back and look at the stats, it was a dead split in rushing attempts for the both of them. DeAndre Swift was running back 2. Jamal Williams was nice. I believe he was a top 30 running back during that stretch. But I'm not concerned about it because DeAndre Swift was on pace for over 100 targets last season. Even if that man's like, no, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that DeAndre Swift is going to see the same receiving volume that he did last season. But what I am going to tell you is that man is still going to see 5 targets a game because Dan Campbell knows how talented he is. People were saying, oh, Dan Campbell doesn't think he can handle a full workload. No, what Dan Campbell said was that they want to preserve DeAndre Swift. They want him to get his legs underneath him so that when The regular season comes 3-4 weeks in, they can start putting Swift out on the field more. They felt like they just rushed him into it last year. If you recall that in the first week against the 49ers, like the plan wasn't to give DeAndre Swift more than 20 touches that game. He ended up having 30 plus, right? Like reports were all saying we're not rushing DeAndre Swift back. And then they got down and they just threw DeAndre Swift into every scenario. So Dan Campbell thinks he can handle the load. It's just a matter of getting him to that point and not burning him out right away. So you're telling me I can get a running back with top 3 upside, because clearly he can do it with Jamal Williams on the field as running back 2 in the early second round of my drafts. Like that is a league winner. I'm not drafting him. Like there's too many other people out there who think DeAndre Swift like is going to not be a value this year. I'm all over DeAndre Swift in drafts. I think he has a league winning potential this year. If Jonathan Taylor has it going as the RB, I believe he was the RB9 in drafts last year. Or no, he was earlier than that, the RB7 in drafts last year. I think DeAndre Swift has it going as the RB8 in the early second round this year. So we went 2 fairly different directions. You went wide receiver. I went running back. Both big name players. Where are you pivoting for your second league winner?
I'm going wide receiver again, but I'm going to a guy that once I'll say it, you'll say, "Oh, I know who that is." But then you'll think of the situation again, and then you'll go like, well, yeah, really? Darnell Mooney.
You're throwing out some names that I just would not have picked you to. Oh my goodness.
I know. And look, I've wondered for the longest time why Darnell Mooney is closer to 30 than he is to 25 when it comes to ADP after finishing in the top 20 last year, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm like, you know what? That Bears offense, we talked about it with David Montgomery. This Bears offense is just going to be stinky all year long.
Good adjective.
Here's the thing. Stinky. But here's the thing. It doesn't mean that someone can't get insane volume. I shouldn't say insane volume. Good, solid volume. Darnell Mooney last year, again, finishes a top 20 wide receiver, but let's just go through some of these stats again, because when I looked up these stats, and literally right before we recorded, I looked at Lucas and I went, oh shoot. Darnell Mooney was 11th in targets with 140. Okay, 140 targets. He was the 11th in target share amongst wide receivers. He was 13th in air yards. He was 15th in deep target. He was top 20 receiving, receptions, receiving yards, and yards after the catch. He only had 5 touchdowns, okay? So that's where the downside of Mooney it comes into play, is that he's just not going to score many touchdowns. We saw DJ Moore finish as a top 20 wide receiver last year with his quarterback situation in the exact same situation. I mean, a little more target heavy for sure, but again, still top 20. Mooney was the same way. Here's the best thing about Mooney, though. He was 11th in total routes won amongst wide receivers, and he was 7th in target separation, okay? And here's the thing. He nearly had 2 yards of separation by the time that he was receiving the ball from a pass, okay? 2 yards of separation. I'll say it. That's elite route running. That you can cause that much separation to get 2 yards of separation. Look, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but guess what? In the NFL, 2 yards is like 10 yards for everyone else, okay? That's elite, okay? Darnell Mooney has Justin Fields again this year. And again, I said it before. The touchdown upside just really is not there. But if you're looking for a guy to get serious volume, and he's going later than I'm trying to remember. Later than guys like Hollywood Brown, who has a situation with Zach Ertz and a DeAndre Hopkins factor. Later than a guy like Jalen Waddle. Look, Darnell Mooney is probably the most unsexy pick you can have in a draft because of his situation. But rest assured, Darnell Mooney is going to reward you. And that's where you find value in your drafts. And that's why he's a league winner, because he's a value right now.
So for Darnell Mooney to return a league winning value, he's going as the wide receiver 30 right now. Where does he need to finish to qualify as like a league winner in your book?
I feel like 18 is too low. So, yeah, like 15, 16, 17. So
And you think
double where he's, or cut in half where he's going in drafts right now.
So you think he actually has a chance of finishing in that range?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I don't mind Darnell Mooney. I think he's a fine volume play. I just don't find him on my teams very often, and part of it is just where I'm drafting from. But like you said with Darnell Mooney, this team's going to have to play from behind a lot. They're going to have to pass the football a lot. So 140 targets, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility for Darnell Mooney, especially now that you have Allen Robinson gone. I know he wasn't a massive target hog or anything last year, but again, targets need to be shuffled around. And if Mooney loses any targets in any capacity, right, like there has been enough overturn on that team where his targets will be made up, or Mooney's any potential for loss of targets for Mooney will be made up by the overturn at the position there. I'm going to get my second league winner out of the way. And it's a guy who I've just been touting all off season. He was a flag plant, and I know we said we were going to try and avoid flag plants, but this is a guy where it's like I don't understand why. Like, he has to be on this list, if you ask me. It is like undeniable that he is a league winner this year, and it's Trey Lance. I have been harping Trey Lance all offseason. I have been telling you that there has been a breakout quarterback with high mobile upside since 2019 that's broken out every season. It was the year of Lamar Jackson in 2019. We saw Josh Allen in 2020. Not only did we see Josh Allen in 2020, we also saw Kyler Murray break out in 2020 as well. Last year, it was Jalen Hurts. I am telling you, this year it is Trey Lance. It is all these late round ADP quarterbacks that are breaking out with their high mobile upside. Trey Lance is going as a quarterback 13. Lamar Jackson was going as a quarterback 15 in 2019. Josh Allen, he was going as a quarterback 11, I believe, in 2020. Last year, Jalen Hurts was going as a quarterback 12. Excuse me. Trey Lance going as a quarterback 13. He is that guy. He has elite weapons around him in the passing game. If you're concerned about his arm, that is fine. He also had 7+ rushing attempts in each of his 3 starts last season. And one of those was like half a start. He only played 50% of the snaps in week 4, I believe it was, that he got a spot, or he got put in. I'm trying to think of when it was in that game, but he only played 50% of the snaps, and he still had 7 rushing attempts in that game. Trey Lance is going to give you a floor of 50 fantasy points because he's going to rush for at least 500 yards this season, on top of whatever touchdowns he gives you, on top of all of his passing stats. Trey Lance is a guy you're going to draft as a quarterback 13, and he's going to return tenfold on that. Like, I think he has potential. I mean, if I think Jalen Hurts was quarterback 2 until he tweaked his ankle last year. That was, I believe, through week 12. Like, I think Trey Lance has just as much upside as that. So, like, if Trey Lance comes out and gives you a top 5 finish this year, I'll be here saying I told you so. And you're going to win your league because of it, because you waited on quarterback throughout your entire draft, and you loaded up at talent at every other position, and you got a potential top 5 quarterback in the 9th round of your draft because you waited for the quarterback 13 in Trey Lance. League winner, hands down for me this year. He's my number 2 pick. So far, I have my top 2 options. I'll have you know. You haven't sniped me on anybody yet.
Too.
Your league winner. You've gone
we'll
2.
See. We'll see.
You've got 2 wide receivers for your 2 league winners. What position are you targeting next year? I shouldn't say targeting, but what position are you going with next?
Yeah, we're going running back, and I'm taking a page out of your book because you said we were not doing flag plants, but here you are taking a flag plant. So I'm going to take a flag plant as well. Sorry, that seemed pretty.
He's my only one. He's my only one.
Added. Yeah, this guy that I'll talk about is also my only flag plant. It's AJ Dillon. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the guy finishes the RB23 last year. He's going as the RB26 right now in drafts. He finished top 20 in receiving stats. He's a goal line threat going into this year. He had nearly 50% of the team's carries in the red zone with Davante Adams. Now Davante Adams is no longer there, and they did not find a replacement for Davante Adams. I shouldn't say it like that. They did not find a replacement of similar caliber to Davante Adams. AJ Dillon can we ask the question and be fully, serious about this? Can AJ Dillon lead the league in touchdowns this year?
Total rushing? What are we talking? I think my answer is no.
We'll say rushing.
Now with Aaron Jones on the team, I don't think so.
Ooh, interesting. Because I think
he
does.
Tyler, you and I normally don't disagree on much. I'm like, oh my goodness. This is like a new issue we have. But keep going. If you think he has leading the league in touchdown upside, I mean, all the power to you. If Aaron Jones wasn't there, I'd say yes. But I think Aaron Jones still vultures some of that.
So I think what it comes down to is how many touchdowns do we think Rodgers throws versus how many is scored on the ground. We've seen a lot of 30s, high 30s from Rodgers. I'm expecting that number to come right back, or I shouldn't say right down, but I'm like high 20s, like 30, 31. Right?
Yeah,
like
they'll
that's
come
what
down.
I'm expecting from Rodgers. That's at least 6 or 7 touchdowns that you're taking away from Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to argue that all those go to A.J. Dillon, but I feel like a fair amount should go to A.J. Dillon if he's getting nearly 50% of the red zone snaps in the red zone. That was redundant. Anyway,
I followed.
The point is, A.J. Dillon has a much more favorable situation this year than he did last year. And he's going lower than his ADP. Or he's going lower than where he finished last year. Goodness gracious, I cannot talk. Point being, if you're looking for an RB2 late round as you're stacking up a wide receivers, and when I say late round, I'm saying that like dead zone area. Lucas mentioned Kareem Hunt. I'm also in favor of Kareem Hunt. But I'm also looking at A.J. Dillon's way first. And if I can't get A.J. Dillon, then I'm going to Kareem Hunt. But again, for where A.J. Dillon is going right now in drafts, and I think he's going in like the 5th round, right, based on his ADP.
Yep.
He can return a 3rd round value, in my opinion. And that, again, the argument I made with Moody, based on value, where you're getting guys in these drafts, A.J. Dillon can be a league winner for you.
So I think A.J. Dillon could be a league winner. It's just more so the like league leader in touchdowns. That's what I don't think I necessarily agree with. But no, I think A.J. Dillon can absolutely be a league winner this year. Again, you're talking about value on ADP. You're talking about the guy who, I mean, in a dynamic Packers offense, right? I don't think it's a guarantee they just run or a guarantee they pass, every single time from inside of the, 10, 20 yard line. I'm like losing my voice here. I'm going to have to really speed through some of my guys because you're going to keep hearing me voice crack. I agree. I do think A.J. Dillon has league winning upside. That I will agree with you on. The touchdowns we can disagree on, but I think it just comes in different capacity. All right, I'm going to transition to another running back as I clear my throat here. Make this my 3rd flag plant. And this is a guy I'm really starting to creep up on. Like, I can't believe how low I was on this guy before. But due to some roster adjustments on his team, like, I am thrilled to have this. Like, honestly, he's starting to creep into the, like, again, we're talking about running back 2s that you're targeting after the dead zone, right? Where A.J. Dillon was one name. We brought up Kareem Hunt. I'm starting to get to the point with this guy where I think if I go wide receiver heavy early with tight end quarterback mix in there, right? Go like a hero running back where you get like a, Dalvin Cook 1st round, and then you stack up on wide receiver, tight end quarterback, and you get to the like 6th, 7th round. My goodness, I cannot speak. I'm looking Ramondre Stevenson's way as a league winner this year. Ooh. Here's the thing about Ramondre. Graded out as PFF's highest graded rookie running back last season. You have all this receiving work that I get James White didn't play last year. Like, he didn't play a majority of the season. but I think they're going to want to get Ramondre Stevenson more involved in the passing attack. I think just with how targets are shaping up there, I think Ramondre Stevenson has I believe I have Ramondre statted out for 50 targets right now. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. For an offense that wants to get Ramondre more involved, Damian Harris has been missing time. He's back and practicing now, but Ramondre's been running with the ones quite a bit this preseason. You just add receiving work to Ramondre's game on top of, I think I only have him statted out of 175 carries. I believe he's right around 800 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. So nothing extremely sexy, but you just add that receiving game element to Ramondre Stevenson. And I think the upside is there for him to finish as a running back too for your lineup this year. So I don't think Ramondre is going to come out and have a 15 plus touchdown season like Damian Harris did. But I don't think so. Maybe you'll disagree with me on this then. If I disagree on your league leading touchdowns for AJ Dillon, I think Ramondre Stevenson can score more rushing touchdowns than Damian Harris this year. Damian Harris, final year of his contract. Oh, so you think that's spicy?
I guess I shouldn't say I don't disagree with it. I just have not thought about it like that. I've just thought Damian Harris is the guy on the goal line. That's what they did last year. So
they didn't. Damian Harris in a contract year. I don't think they re-sign him next year. I don't think it's a guarantee they do. They drafted Pierre Strong, and he's still on the roster. The Patriots could go out and do something totally Patriots and just bring in another running back or just throw another off the street guy like a Rex Burkhead, right? No disrespect to Rex Burkhead, but still they could just bring in whoever they want and throw them into their 4-man backfield rotation. All I'm saying is that just because Damian Harris scored 15 touchdowns last year, I don't think that means Ramondre Steele. I don't think that means he's the number one automatically in a team that probably doesn't want to bring him back. So I think they could easily just start investing into Ramondre and let him take over in preparation for next year. So I think Ramondre has league-winning upside. I'm absolutely targeting him as my running back 3 in drafts now. I've had a big change of heart in the past, really probably week. This is a week. I wouldn't have said this about Ramondre a week ago. This is, I know, a shock for you. And when Cameron listens back to this, it'll be a shock for him. But no, man, I'm in on Ramondre this year. Give me, I'll take your Ramondre stocks if you don't want them. So, all right, you've got 2 wide receivers, a running back. We're wrapping it up here. We can clip this along a little bit more quickly for your 4th league winner. So be number 8 now. Number 7. Excuse 7. Can I do math? Yes, number 7. There it is. Math is hard.
Nailed it.
7th league winner between Tyler and I. Tyler, who are you going with here?
I'm going at the tight end position, okay? And normally tight ends.
Did you say tight end as a league winner?
I said tight end as a league winner.
I love it.
So again, normally when we say league winners at tight ends, it's usually Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, okay? But the theme with most of my guys here has been the value in drafts, okay? Because usually, let's think about this scientifically, okay? If the guys that I'm taking that are going later than some guys, if my guys are going to score more than where they're going, that means that guys going earlier are going to score less, okay? And people are spending draft capital on them earlier, so I'm getting value and I'm scoring more points, okay? It's scientific. It's science, okay? It's really just simple calculus. But again, back to the tight ends. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce are really the 2 tight ends, right? But what if I were to tell you that the best value for tight end right now, honestly, is TJ Hawkinson?
Oh, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's not Kyle Pitts. It's not George Kittle. It's not Darren Waller. It's not even Dalton Schultz.
What about Cole Kmet? What about Cole Kmet?
Well, see, I thought about doing Cole Kmet, but since I put in Mooney, 2 Bears is kind of
2 Bears.
You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? No, here's really 2 points that I'll make about TJ Hawkinson. Okay, I think this was in a Dave Kluge tweet. I think I don't know where this was, but when you look at the fantasy points per game between all tight ends, Dalton Schultz came in at number 5, 12.3. Very respectable, very modest. Do you know where TJ Hawkinson finished?
He was
finished
above that,
6th.
wasn't he? Oh, right behind him.
He finished, right behind him. He only had 0.2 less points per game than Dalton Schultz. So Dalton Schultz was going 12.3. Hawkinson was going 12.1. Only reason why Hawkinson didn't finish higher, I mean, he finished as a tight end 15, but the only reason why he didn't finish higher was because he missed games with injury, okay? So that's the first point. Dalton Schultz is going like round 6. Hawkinson's going at least a round later. And you're getting almost the exact same amount of points on a per-game basis with TJ Hawkinson. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is I'm fairly certain, as I'm researching on the fly, low-budget productions. That's what we do here. So do you know when TJ Hawkinson got hurt last year?
It's a great question. I don't off the top of my head.
He got injured, or I guess he missed weeks 14 to week 18. Okay.
Yeah.
So 5 games he missed. Do you know what the breakout game for Amon-Ra St. Brown was?
Well, that would be as soon
week
as
13 against the Vikings.
I was gonna say as soon as TJ Hawkinson stepped off the field. Yeah.
And then, I mean, as Hawkinson stepped off the field, the one guy that took over was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that TJ Hawkinson was the number 1 option in this offense, but when you hear the pace that this man was on a 17-game season, you'll understand why. He would have finished with 86 receptions, 119 targets, 825 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Good for tight end 3. Okay. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, TJ Hawkinson is slowly going to climb up my rankings here shortly in our draft guide. Subtle plug. $5. Venmo, Cash App, PayPal.
Forgot to mention that at
all
the top.
of our rankings. But oh well, we mentioned it now. Look, TJ Hawkinson is going to be coming into my top 5 tight ends.
I don't hate that. I actually really like that. I mean, I think TJ Hawkinson was in that conversation last year, but now all of a sudden, like, just because Amon-Ra broke out, because DeAndre Swift is there, it's so many mouths to feed, which is, yes, true, but also, like, I think we also probably forgot how talented of a prospect TJ Hawkinson actually was. So, yeah, I think he fits into that category. I think when you look at where the gap between where a guy like Dalton Schultz is going in drafts and a guy like TJ Hawkinson is going in drafts, all it takes is George Kittle to miss some more time, Darren Waller to miss some more time. And all of a sudden you're drafting TJ Hawkinson at a value at tight end 7 way after you could be drafting either of those 2 guys. So he's kind of at an awkward spot of like, I need to continue building depth. I don't necessarily want to take my starting tight end here, but also like, if anybody takes TJ Hawkinson at his current value, I'm not bewildered by it. I'm going to save, I'm looking at 2 of my final guys here. I'm going to save my last one just in spite of you. I had brought it up earlier in the episode that there's a guy I wanted to talk about. I'm going to save him for last just to spite you. I'm going to cruise through my next league winner pretty quick here. Another wide receiver switched teams this offseason. We've seen players who switch to better scenarios, I will say. You have quarterback shifting around. You have Matthew Stafford going to LA. Cooper Kupp booms. You have Stephon Diggs going to Buffalo with Josh Allen. Diggs all of a sudden booms. We see players move situations, and wide receivers benefit from better quarterback play. And like not just like subpar quarterback play, not a Taylor Heineke or Taylor Heineke to Carson Wentz. We're talking a Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. We're talking a Kirk Cousins to Josh Allen. Elite quarterback play. Juju Smith-Schuster going to Patrick Mahomes qualifies there. look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm not worried about the fact that he needs his knee drained after every time he runs on the football field. Like, that is a concern to me. But when we're talking about players with league winning upside and where they're going in drafts, Juju Smith-Schuster is going as the wide receiver 31. In seasons where he's played at least 14 games, he's never finished lower than the wide receiver 23. He's one of 11 wide receivers in the past 4 years to have at least a 1,400-yard season on his resume. 1,400 yards. Like, I'm not just saying 1,000 yards. That's like the general threshold you want out of like a starting fantasy wide receiver. I'm talking 1,400. We're talking Devontae Adams. We're talking Tyreek Hill. We're talking D-Hop. We're talking Michael Thomas. We're talking elite of elite. And people have said, well, Juju can't be a number one in the offense. I don't think he necessarily he necessarily isn't here, because you have Travis Kelce who's soaking up 150 targets. You have other talented guys like MVS who are going to burn you downfield. You have a rookie Sky Moore who's talented, granted lower on the depth chart. We'll see how that impacts Juju. All that to say, like, Juju in my mind has top 15 upside if he stays healthy. If Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL right now, is throwing him the football, I don't want to hear any of that Aaron Rodgers crap. I shouldn't say crap. Aaron Rodgers is extremely talented, but Patrick Mahomes is the number one quarterback in the NFL in my mind. With the number one quarterback in the NFL throwing him the football, like, Juju Smith-Schuster is a talented NFL wide receiver. Big Ben was washed. Okay, noodle arm Big Ben relied on Deontay Johnson. Just threw the ball wherever he was, just force-fed him because Juju hasn't been on the field. But if Juju's healthy, stays on the field with Patrick Mahomes, we're talking about a guy who has at least top 20 upside in my eyes. And again, one of only 11 wide receivers in the past 4 years to have a 1,400-yard season on his resume. It is the classic, I went from poor quarterback play to I have an elite quarterback now. And like, Juju may not be on par with receivers like Stephon Diggs or Cooper Kupp, but wide receiver 31, like, I think Juju could easily be a league winner this year at his current value.
I love Juju this year. And I know everyone, again, the argument is he can't be a wide receiver one. Travis Kelce has something to say about that. Travis Kelce is the number one option in that offense. Juju,
and we've seen Tyreek Hill put up top 10 numbers while in that same offense as Travis Kelce. Like, I don't think Juju just gets discounted because, like, oh, Kelsey's the number one. It's like, well, all right, well, Tyreek Hill has something to say about that then, right? So I think sky's the limit for Juju this year. Tyler, bring us home. Last league winner here as we wrap out the podcast. Who is it going to be for you?
I'm just going to go with a homer take for this one because why not? Kirk Cousins.
Captain Kirk, baby.
Kirk Cousins is a league winner this year, okay?
Wow.
The last 4, I mean, here's the thing. Last 4 years in Minnesota, he's been a top 12 quarterback 3 of those years, okay? He now gets an upgrade at coach. I'll say it, an upgrade at coach.
He is.
To a quarterback-friendly coach who is going to put guys in advantageous spots to help this offense not only put up yards, but score points. You have a year 3 Justin Jefferson, contract year for Justin Jefferson. You have an elite red zone option in Adam Thielen. You have KJ Osborne, who is a sleeper in every single aspect of the word sleeper when it comes to fantasy and real world football. Then you've got Irv Smith, okay? And not to mention the guys in the backfield, Dalvin Cook, and even Alexander Madison, okay? Kirk Cousins is the most primed for a top 10 finish this year in his entire career. And you're telling me that he's going as a QB 15 behind Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. Excusez-moi. That is not right. I don't care if Derek Carr just got Devontae Adams. He's now in a run-first offense with Josh McDaniels. Then Aaron Rodgers has no more weapons anymore. Those guys are going ahead of a guy like Kirk Cousins right now. Please give me a break. Give me Kirk Cousins every day of the year, 365, 24/7, and twice on Sundays. I tried to quote Lucas, botched it, don't care. Give me Kirk Cousins every single draft.
I didn't even notice like that you botched it. It sounded great to me. I will say I love that you just dunked on Rodgers though. Like you just totally dunked on like I think some people are gonna hear that and they're gonna be like, what is that guy on? Like give me whatever that guy's smoking. I need to feel whatever he's feeling. It's like, no, like I think Kirk, 6 out of the past 7 seasons, top 12 quarterback in fantasy. Like you said, we saw what Kevin O'Connell was able to do for Matt Stafford. I understand that's more of a Sean McVay offense, but like that's the thing. That's the thing. Kevin O'Connell can help Kirk Cousins. He can elevate Kirk Cousins in this fully loaded offense, right? So I think Kirk Cousins has that ability to be a league winner this year. I'm going to close this out here. Since you said Aaron Rodgers has no weapons, it's time for me to talk about one of Aaron Rodgers' weapons. You heathen. I want to talk about Allen Lazard. We need to talk about Allen Lazard. I know you're groaning. Your mic's muted. If only the people could hear you groaning in pain right now. Allen Lazard from week 14 on last season. Tyler, why don't you tell me where Allen Lazard finished from week 14 on last season? Do you know where he finished off the top of your head?
He was a top 10 wide receiver.
He was a wide receiver 8. He did it on, I believe, only 28 targets, which is still at least 5 targets a game. He had 5 touchdowns during that span as well. That's with Devontae Adams on the team, okay? Lazard's going as the wide receiver 44 right now in drafts, which, no, sorry, I stand corrected on that. That's where he is. Aha, I looked in our rankings. Someone has him at wide receiver 44. It's probably you. All that to say,
it's totally me.
Well, let's say if Aaron Rodgers is going to target anybody, it's going to be the guy who he came out publicly and said, Allen Lazard is our wide receiver 1. I'm trusting the mouth of the guy who is throwing that guy the football, who has entire say in the offense, right? When LaFleur's like, oh, we'll have different wide receivers step up every week. I'm going to trust the guy who just is kind of a diva, just kind of does his own thing, doesn't let any coach tell him what to do or what not to do. I'll take the guy who's actually throwing the football on the field and gets to play with those wide receivers every single day. I will take Allen Lazard. Like, you tell me he was a top 10 wide receiver with Devontae Adams on the field last year. I understand he wasn't getting the volume. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Allen Lazard is going to get Devontae Adams type volume. But what I am going to tell you is, like, is Devontae Adams, or not Devontae Adams, is Allen Lazard going to smash his ADP? I think he does. He's in that Brandon Ayuk range where I'm like, you know what? The upside is there for a top 25 finish from each of those guys. And like if we walk away from the season and Allen Lazard all of a sudden finishes as a top 20 fantasy wide receiver, like I feel like that's going to be value enough for what you got on him that he's going to help elevate you to that championship status, because you have built up depth with all these other talented guys we've already named. And you get Allen Lazard in the 9th, 10th round who has top 20 upside. With Aaron Rodgers, the second best quarterback in the NFL, throwing him the football. Oh, you're bewildered that I said top 20 upside. You're bewildered. If it's going to be a guy, it's going to be a guy in the offense that Aaron Rodgers trusts, that he elevated to a top 10 wide receiver. And I understand sample sizes and everything. Like sample size is everything. I understand it's only a 5-game sample we're looking at, but like, brother, oh no, he's not going to walk off set, is he? He took out the headphones. He pushed the mic. Okay, he's still here. He's still here. I need your rebuttal, though, because I think Allen Lazard could be a league winner this year.
I don't think it's necessarily... that he can't finish there, because his situation is very, very, very ideal. I just like 20 other receivers more than Allen Lazard.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I think the league winning upside is there, because I think Allen Lazard has more likelihood to smash his ADP than a lot of other guys ahead of him. Maybe you just disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But I think Allen Lazard, I think his likelihood of drastically outperforming his ADP is so much more likely. I had it on my phone and my phone died, than a lot of the other guys going in his range.
I mean, by the standard that I had set for all of my guys, yes, Allen Lazard is a league winner, right? Someone that's going to smash their ADP and return value, right? Yes. So yes, he is a league winner. Sorry, excuse me, but hey. I guess we can't take Lazard expecting. Oh, I shouldn't say a whole lot, but you get the point that I'm trying to say. Like,
Oh, I don't think you should draft
maybe
Allen.
here's the best way to.
I would say I don't think you should draft Allen Lazard expecting him to automatically finish top 20. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is if he does finish there, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yes, and I think I've seen people wait on Lazard for a while in drafts to take him as their flex. That is a no-no. Get him where he's going, because then he'll return value, and then you'll look like the smartest person on planet Earth. You will not look smart by taking him as your flex, if that makes sense.
No, 100% agree. 100% agree. Well, there you go. 10 league winners for 2022 draft style from Tyler and I. Any honorable mentions you want to bring up before we sign off here? We don't have to give any analysis, just a few names that I had on my list that we didn't talk about.
Yeah, I'll give you two, and they are guys that you like, so I want to see if these guys are on your honorable mentions. Chase Edmonds and Isaiah McKenzie.
Ooh, I had Chase Edmonds. I did not have Isaiah McKenzie.
Oh.
Chase Edmonds would have been next for me. And because I decided to not go with two Lions, Amon-Ra was also on my list. When the Lions say they want to run their offense through Amon-Ra, I'm also putting some stock into that. So Amon-Ra was my other one that I would have brought up. And Chase Edmonds would have been my other one too. $5 draft guide. We are in the middle of draft season. I'm sure a lot of you are ready to absolutely dominate your drafts this weekend, but unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do that without the $5 fellas draft guide, the FDFDG baby. Down in the description of the podcast, if you're listening to the podcast format, if you're on YouTube watching this video, thanks for tuning in. Just down in the description, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, $5. Please send us your email. We will get the draft guide to you literally as soon as possible. Yes, get the $5 fellas draft guide if you want to truly dominate your draft this weekend. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas, Facebook, YouTube here, and TikTok. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter. Tyler is Tyler_Plath. If you're watching the YouTube, it's right on the screen conveniently for you. Anything you want to add before we officially sign off here?
Keep up the good fight.
Keep on keeping on. We're three stooges being dudes. Just Tyler and I today, the Fantasy Football Fellas. We will see you all for some NFL action next week. Deuces.